breathing. Breathing is the thing. And people ask me a lot, like, what's the one thing you have to teach everybody? And it's breathing. I mean, the horses will reflect the rider not breathing. And I've had riders who were like, oh, I do yoga, I'm good at breathing. And I ask them to take a breath and they go, and everything goes up. And that is not functional. So really teaching people to use their diaphragm the right way and being able to expand around the rib cage and down in a lower place is then gonna give the horse that sort of exhale that they can use. And I mean, I had a rider who just absolutely stopped and patted her horse because when we did that work, it was the first time she had ever actually heard him exhale out loud while she sat the trot.
There's a difference between mechanically setting it up and going through the motions, and then there's this beautiful moment where when you and your horse both comprehend the movement, where you can just set them up and then exhale and let the horse do their job. It's one of my favorite feelings.
One of my assets is my strength when necessary to apply, but if I have to employ my strength to any significant degree, I've already gone down the wrong path, and the balance isn't such that I've already lost the thread, in that if I have to use great amount of strength, I'm already behind. So I've always been trying to be softer and to use less strength.
I can't also just check out just because he knew his job and he knew what to do. I still had to manage that. And it wasn't until I really found that my body and my muscle tone wasn't either on or off, that it could be sort of a volume dial, right? That it's maybe I go from a 5 to a 3, but I can't go to a 0 ever. That I really was able to solidify those. And so that has trickled over into many other occasions where I have to learn how to live not just 0 to 100, but somewhere in between.
Okay. It reminds me of an aphorism that there are none so blind than those that refuse to see. And every horse I've ever been on has taught me something. And it's just a question of whether I've been in a place where I can hear it or not. Thankfully, as I'm getting older, I think I'm better at that than I used to be. But no, every horse has something to tell you and something to teach you. And it may be that this horse that you get on teaches you something about a horse that you'd been on earlier in the day. And then you can come back to that horse the next day or later that day with more empathy, with more softness, with more patience, whatever is required, but every single day. And the days that I'm not learning from them are days I'm not listening.
He was a lovely horse, but his training, he had been ridden by a really amateur before, and he was incredibly opinionated. And he would put his head up so high that I could see his nostrils and then just take off with me. And in actuality, I thought that I just come off my first Olympics thinking that I was a superstar and everything, because I rode in the Olympics. And, very little consciousness of that, so what? Right? So it was very, very humbling for me to understand that I couldn't manhandle him or just force him to do it. Because when he'd had enough, he'd had enough. And I remember one day he just pulled me out of the saddle, even with a double bridle on. I was in the jumper ring trying to do something work with him in that. And then I pushed a bridge too far, tried to bend him, he took off. And there was a 3-foot fence or 3.5-foot fence around the whole jumping ring. And he took off with me towards the barn. I could only see his nostrils. He jumped. I don't know even how he saw the fence. He jumped the fence, and they had a horse swimming pool, it was like a pond, and that had a float in the middle of it, and then they would just put the halter on and then a pole out, and they would swim it around. Then they put the ramp up and then swim it around that thing. So he was back, he got to the door, and I thought, you were not taking me through this door. And so I didn't give, and so he started flying backwards towards the pond, swimming pool pond. And I thought, no way, he's not that dumb. And but he was that smart, because he reared and then fell backwards into the pond with me on him. And I thought, the strong didn't work, and I'm not that strong anyway, because he already had pulled me out of the saddle. And so then I had to rethink. He was struggling, and I'm like, okay, I can't do this. So then I had to grab him and bring him around to where the ramp was to get out. So then I thought, okay, you're not that smart, you're not that good, you're not that talented, so how are you going to make this horse work for you? And then I started with a whole different idea of trying to ride with a softness, definite, clean, the way I had been trained, and then that's what changed the whole thing. Like, be smart, be soft, and not that there are moments you have to really bend a horse, but they have to be able to do what you're asking. They have to understand to do what you're asking to be able to be soft, not strong.
What I would have said at the time was a plateau was really actually a deeply educational period in my life, because I was transitioning from learning how to ride a trained horse, or learning to ride a horse that was at the level they were at, to the transition of how to develop a horse. And that I still am in that period of my education. And I still feel like every day I'm getting better. And year over year, I'm getting better, because the horses are teaching me how to be better as we go through the challenges that we're facing. But I think that sometimes what we perceive as a plateau may in fact be not a static point in our education, but a point where we need more time to process the information, or that that it may be a deeper level of education in that period of time.
Okay.
It took a year to be able to do 15 ones without the break in the middle of the 5. And so it was funny, because once he did it once, he did it. I don't think I ever made a mistake. No, I don't think he ever made a mistake in the one tempo in the ring, ever. Or even in training after that. But I thought, I don't think I can ever do one tempo in this horse. Like, I would go home and ruminate, and what am I doing wrong? And am I not fast enough? Because, of course, they're saying, faster with that leg, faster. And I was like, well, kick. So I did. And he was like, yeah, no, not so much today. And then he decided one day he could do it, and that was it. That was the big breaking moment for me. And it was hard work, perseverance, and good training from my trainer's point of view, from my trainers helping me. And you never lose your temper. It's persistence and consistency that makes you get through those tough times, really, a lot.